Welcome into Tusk Talk on a Tuesday. Got a lot to unpack as far as Arkansas Razorback sports are concerned. I'm Mark Freeman. Brad Caldwell will be along here shortly. We've got basketball, we've got baseball, we've got football. I want to start by asking today's Or Automall poll questions. Brad's put a couple of them out there on social media. We want you guys to comment below, share this post, and let people know what we're doing here, because we're just talking about Razorback sports. We're talking good things, bad things, ugly things. We're talking a little bit of everything as far as Razorback sports are concerned. But Brad asked a couple Or Automall poll questions. First one was, looking back at the last few years of Razorback football, it's just been a mess. And really, you can go all the way back to that April Fool's Day when Bobby Petrino wrecked in the ditch, and the thing has just not really recovered since. So Brad asked the question the other day, who do you blame most? And just looking through, he had almost 1,000 people had responded as of last time I checked. But he asked Brett Bielema, Jeff Long, Chad Morris, or other. And, I answered this poll question, and I'll just give you my answer, and then you guys can decide whatever you think about where your blame is placed. But I said Chad Morris because the last 2 years are just unacceptable. 2-10, 2 times in a row is unbelievably bad and shouldn't be possible at the University of Arkansas. If you listen to Sam Pittman, you can hear him talk about how that is. But somebody, I don't remember who it was, so I apologize for stealing your thunder, but somebody talked me into Jeff Long, because really, if you want to get down to it, he basically had to fire Bobby Petrino. I feel like he had to fire him. There was really no other way of doing it. But hiring Brett Bielema was a mistake, and it was a complete 180 from what Bobby Petrino did. It was going to take some time to recover regardless. It did take some time to recover. Bielema got to a certain point, and that was really all it was for him. It was a peak of about 7 wins, and it just wasn't going to go anywhere else from there. I don't want to get into his off-the-field things that may or may not even be true.
Because you don't want to get sued.
That's true.
Right?
But here's Brad. But I don't think that it was necessarily Bielema, because you can't pick Bielema in this choice to me, because Chad Morris was worse. So do you blame Brett Bielema for something that when Chad Morris was even worse as far as a coach? I think Jeff Long is probably the right answer, because then he goes and puts us on this trajectory to where Chad Morris is sort of forced upon, I don't even want to get into that either, Hunter Yurachek, and then we're in the situation that we're in now. I think that, obviously it's an opinion, it's a poll. You decide who you think should be the winner, but I think Jeff Long is probably what I've changed my answer to.
He's up there, for sure.
Well, he's obviously, right now, he's in the lead. He's got 41% of the vote.
There is a big old pot that you could throw a lot of people and things in and situations. And, somebody even said going all the way back to John White, and John White trying to make Arkansas the Harvard of the South, and all this other stuff that he was going to do. And
that's not a bad choice either. Really, if you want to think about the roots of some of the problems.
Well, he really, if you want to talk about somebody got the ball rolling, it probably was John White, because he was the one that hired Jeff Long. And who hired John White? Maybe that's the one that we need to blame.
We'll blame that person.
But
this is going to be Frank Broyles' fault after a while.
There you go. I think there's a lot of blame to go around. Jeff Long is one of them. And one of the reasons that Jeff Long is up there, in my opinion, Jeff Long hired Brett Bielema on a whim, because Brett Bielema wrote him a letter, and, a handwritten letter, and he was so impressed by that. And of course, he was a name coach and all that, but if you did a little of the background checking on it, you would probably have found that Wisconsin and Barry Alvarez were hand in hand, and they were still winning ball games because of his decisions and the things that were going on with how he kind of ran that program. And you look at Gary Anderson. Gary Anderson went 19-7 at Wisconsin. He leaves Wisconsin because, hey, look, you're coaching under Barry Alvarez. there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And he leaves and goes to Oregon State. He won 3 ball games last year. And Paul Christ, name about slipped my mind there. Paul Christ has been uber successful at Wisconsin. What was he at Pitt? 7-6, 6-7 before he got there. So, I just feel like that there's a lot of things that you could Wow, that's pretty neat there.
That's a little poll question on
nice.
the screen.
I like
Maddie's
it.
pulled some Maddie magic again.
I love it. Anyway, that being said, yeah, that's the first time I saw it. Kind of surprised me. But I think that Bielema, with Long, I think there was some blame there. Bielema, there is some blame with him as well. And the reason I think it goes with Bielema is that I think Bielema was a little bit hard to work with for several reasons. Even Sam Pittman hasn't said anything like too.
You can't get into the stuff.
He can't throw it out there, but there's a little bit of vagueness that goes out there with it. But that Pittman was part of the original staff. He comes in with I thought what was a really good staff.
It was
Chris Ash, Charlie Partridge, Sam Pittman. Those guys really kind of they carried the load recruiting wise for sure.
Yeah.
And you saw the recruiting, and when he first came in, I mean, Arkansas was pitiful. But, you were able to get Alex Collins, Denver Kirkland, all these guys from different places in the country, and it looked to be going pretty good. Then you throw in the fact that Arkansas should have won several ball games that they didn't win. I mean, think about this. The trajectory that Arkansas would have been on under Bielema had they won 8 or 9 ball games that second year, which very possible, blowing fourth quarter leads in several games there. And then 9, 10, 11 wins that next year. I mean, you may be looking at a whole different ball of wax here now. So Bielema is in that. He's in that because of the decisions that he made on the field, but also decisions that he made off the field. And by the time that he was done here, this thing was in shambles for Chad Morris, who just flat out wasn't good enough to pick up the pieces. I mean, that's the bottom line with Morris is I don't know how good or bad a coach that he is. I would never have him as head coach. I think that he probably will prove to be a pretty good offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, he was not the man that they needed to pick up the pieces because they knew. And even the administration said that. We knew this was going to be a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild. But Chad Morris was so bad that even in a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild, they fired him. So obviously he has a hand in it too. So again, then you go all the way back to Bobby Petrino, that got the ball rolling on the field. It was a mess. It's been a mess, and you hope that it is working out. It seems to be working out. There seems to be a grown-up in the room with Sam Pittman. That has been something that Arkansas has lacked at the head coaching position.
They want to kick bleep is what they want to do. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I love it.
That's a pretty good line from the offensive line coach,
I'm going to go
Brad
ahead
Davis.
and vote right now. I'm going to vote Jeff Long myself and would have voted Jeff Long to begin with. Now, I think, Jeff, if he ever got a hold of this, he would he'd probably not be very happy. He's one of those guys that don't like to take a lot of blame for things. So.
Well, Brad also had a second poll question. This is basketball related. We'll
Bill
get
Harshaw,
to
man. Bill,
here in just a little bit. He said blame the volleyball shorts. Oh man,
can't Barry Booker here,
somebody
man.
Somebody else said Harley Davidson. Blame Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
His other poll question, the Oro Mall poll question: will the Hogs basketball team make the NCAA tournament? So comment below with your thoughts. We would love to hear from you as well. Lots of stuff, as we mentioned, to cover today on the show. We'll start with basketball. Baseball we'll get to here in just a little bit. We're going to try to go in order of the seasons that are, obviously the ones going, the one who's about to go in baseball, and then we'll talk a little football. As always, when we get a chance to talk about something that's exciting with football, that's what we're going to do. And spring football is right around the corner. So, Brad, with the basketball team, I think both of our predictions have sort of changed a little bit, and neither one of them were anywhere near right. Although I did look at my projections, and I'm 2-2 when I had them going 2-2. I just had them beating Missouri instead of Alabama.
Yeah. So
I switched, and in that case, the projection is about where it was, which was 9-9 for a 21-10 overall record. So I'm less optimistic than I was weeks ago. And I said this on Twitter yesterday. You can follow us at MiniHatsMan, at Real Mark Freeman. And, over the last few weeks, Eric Musselman has just absolutely shocked me with what he's been able to put on, getting out of this team with so few athletes that are eligible and healthy and able to contribute. So I want you to take this with a grain of salt. My expectations just kept raising because I thought, well, if he can keep Arkansas in games against some of these teams they don't have any business beating, or win games on the road and do things that we've never seen as far as wins on the road. Well, maybe they can go to the tournament. They can be a 5 or a 6 seed. They can make a run and win a game in the tournament. Well, as things shook out, injuries, fatigue, attrition, all the things that happen, you start seeing them lose some games they shouldn't have lost. I mean, there's just no getting around it. You can't lose to South Carolina at home the way they did. You can't lose to Missouri. You can't blow the game against Auburn the way they did. Now, they win a game against Alabama on the road that people wouldn't have necessarily expected, but the thing has just not been what my unrealistic raised expectations got to.
Right.
So after the Kentucky game, my expectations kind of came down a notch. After the South Carolina game, they hit the skids. They absolutely hit the skids. And I thought, well, they can't make the tournament. And now I feel more optimistic because my expectations are at a more reasonable level. And I feel like now, today, I don't expect them to win on the road as an underdog against Tennessee. And now if they do win, I'll be excited. I'll be happy. And it won't be like it was, a couple weeks ago where I would have looked at this game and said, Tennessee's not very good. You can beat them. Go do it. And then when they lose, I'd be mad. So I feel like as our expectations have moved, when you get to an appropriate level, things aren't as bad as I thought they might have been.
Well, I'm with you. I think that we need to pull a Levitard here. Maddie, put it on the poll question. Should Arkansas fire Eric Musselman? Yes or no?
I said on Twitter yesterday, everybody who's saying that Eric Musselman should, or in any way, it's even a discussion about him losing his job, they need their speaking privileges revoked.
Man, there's one guy out there, and boy, did he
Dingleberry.
He got some comments, man.
The man's name is Dingleberry. I'm not talking trash to anybody if my name's Dingleberry.
Okay, so here's the thing with that is if you look at his tweet, it had like 200 comments, no retweets, and no likes. So he's literally the only guy in the whole world that feels the way that he feels about that situation. But you're right. I mean, the expectations got raised probably to a point that they shouldn't have. But the point of it is, and I thought he put it on there, it popped up. I get distracted when it pops up there. The point is that, right now, expectations need to be a little bit lower. Part of that is when Isaiah Joe got hurt, we were undermanned as it was, and then you take Isaiah Joe out. I mean, honestly, who's the next scorer? I mean, who's the next guy? I mean, it's Desi Seals, in my opinion, and I said
Jimmy Witt.
Yes, you're right, Jimmy Witt. Then Seals is the third option, and then that's it. I mean, there's really nobody else. I mean, Adriel Bailey has had his moments, but Reggie Chaney, though, let's talk a little bit about him and say that this guy's playing very well. He's playing a really good brand of basketball right now, one that we expected him to play coming in, and now he's actually doing it. 17 points and 11 rebounds, I think, against Missouri. He's putting up back-to-back double-doubles. The guy's playing very well, so he's a guy that's in that mix. But one of the things that I want to point out that nobody's really talking about right now is Arkansas's defense and how it has slipped. Arkansas is now giving up 66 points per game, which is 90th in the NCAA, where they were number one at one point. They were giving up 50 points per game, so it's a 15-point jump.
Yeah, but that was when they were playing turns.
I agree, but that's the whole point, though. The defense was going to take them as far as they could go.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if they're giving up 66 a game, that means that right now they're obviously scoring less than that, although they are averaging 74. Their averages are not averaging out, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Their averages come up 15 points, and there's a reason for that. They gave up 83 to Missouri the other day, who is like second to last in scoring in the conference.
We don't need to talk about that.
Man, I'm going to tell you something.
I was annoyed big time with that one.
I got really annoyed with Mike Irwin.
Well, he's the reason that I got into the beef that I got into last week. And I went on a back and forth with some people on Twitter because of something Mike Irwin said. It makes me no sense. Now, I'm not one of those I almost said Mike Anderson, fire Muss guys. That's stupid to me. But it is absolutely within the realm to question decisions and to question. And I know we've got the benefit of hindsight. And really the question would have been, with the benefit of hindsight, Coach Muss, do you think you would have done anything differently holding the ball against Auburn up 9, knowing they're going full tilt on the other end and you're just trying to hang on? Would you have done anything differently? Obviously he would have. You're really asking him to tell you what kind of adjustments that you think he'd make going forward. And then against Missouri, it was a similar thing. They just ran out of gas. They don't have enough. They don't have enough in the tank.
That wasn't what annoyed me. Here's what annoys me about, and I'm going to throw this at Arkansas fans. I might get a little bit of backlash on this when I say it, but Arkansas. There's a lot of Arkansas fans that act like they're too good to be a rival with Missouri right now. And, of course, a lot of that is because of the forced battle line rivalry and borderline rivalry, whatever you want to call it. But I want to say this, that, Arkansas fans, the way you feel right now about Missouri is how LSU fans feel about you, and that's why you're in this position in the first place. Texas A&M feels that way about you.
Arkansas doesn't have a rival.
Exactly. And so that's the whole point of this.
It's contrived, for sure.
And it's going to happen over the years of time. I mean, I think that there is a pretty good little basketball rivalry because of Mike Anderson and all that. Football has definitely been different. But the point that I'm trying to make is this, is that Arkansas fans, you shouldn't feel too good to be a rival to anybody right now, especially on the football field. And if somebody wants to be a rival, embrace them. Well, at this point, okay.
You're exactly right. We as a state are not too good to be a rival with Missouri. And if you really want to get down to it, not only have they owned Arkansas in basically everything the last few years, except for baseball, obviously.
Well, basketball too. It's been about even.
Football, they've just absolutely dominated. You would be well served, I think, over the next decade to say, yeah, we'll be rivals with Missouri, because I think the tides are about to turn, things are about to shift. What I got upset with Irwin about is that, he's real gritty. He kind of has this gruff to him. He got into it with David Basil. Who gets into it with David Basil? The nicest person on the planet, and you're going to get into it on Twitter with them about something.
It was about the trophy. It was about the trophy, man.
Arkansas rivals with.
Well, here, let's go back. Let's go back just a little bit.
He drove me nuts the other night.
Number one, I'm going to say this about the Arkansas-Missouri rivalry. It is about to get heated up because the coach that is there. Yeah, and he's already kind of throwing a little bit on the fire right now.
And you're talking about Drinkwitz.
Yes, I'm talking about Drinkwitz, who is from Alma and went to Arkansas Tech University. I mean, a guy that I have known. I don't make phone calls to him, but I know who he is and have talked with him more than one occasion, back in the day. So I think that's going to happen. But it came out that, Missouri Athletics actually tweeted, basically that this trophy's gathering dust and we're going to bring it out and we're going to.
It's rivalry talk.
Yes. We're going to honor this team. And then, of course, Arkansas fans shoot back, well, that team was 2-10, blah, 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 And then it got into, well, Arkansas is not a rival with Missouri. And again, my annoyance with that talk was, well, Arkansas is too good to be a rival with Missouri. Historically, and that's what we started to get into. Yeah. Historically, Arkansas is better than Missouri in every way.
Richardson ain't walking through that door.
Well, the whole point is that, and we're talking about football here, is that historically in the last 10 years, when you go back to a recruit, how old was a recruit 10 years ago? 8 years old. All they know is that Missouri has dominated Arkansas.
Yeah.
And Arkansas has been dominated in a lot of fashions. I'm 38 years old. I know that historically Arkansas is better than Missouri. I know that they should be better than Missouri. They have all the resources to be better than Missouri, but it just hasn't been better than Missouri. And so with that being said, the annoyance to me is we don't want Missouri to be a rival. We want to be a rival with LSU. We want to be a rival with A&M. That's great. But right now, you're not beating either one of them teams. You're not coming close to LSU. And on the A&M side of things, you are coming close. You're just not winning. This is not happening. So I would just like to back off of that talk a little bit and just say, okay, you know what? You want to be a rival? And let me say something about Missouri. They can say whatever they want to say, but Arkansas is a rival to them, and here's why. The shirts that they made the other day, did you see them? Beat our Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, Kansas has been their, the old-fashioned hate game or something like that. They hate each other. So they put Arkansas on the level with Kansas with that shirt, so they do consider them a rival. And so at that point, just embrace it. It's okay to be a rival with Missouri. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that Missouri's not that great, but we're not great at all.
No, you're right. I just what drove me nuts the most about this was that it was like we couldn't question anything. And I'm talking about Mike Irwin and talking about Muss. I think that there was, especially in the Auburn game, it was really the Auburn game, there were some questionable decisions. You set on the ball basically with 5-6 minutes left in the game, blow an 11-point lead within about 5 minutes left, it was about 9, and blow the game. Miss free throws, whatever the case may be, but you took your foot off the pedal when you had a 9-point lead. And that's just, I thought, with the benefit of hindsight, as I mentioned, Eric Musselman would do things differently. If he had the opportunity, I think he would have probably done similar to what Alabama did against Auburn, where they got up 7 points. Auburn was coming at them hard and heavy trying to make this comeback. And instead of wilting and holding the ball and saying, all right, we're just going to watch this 30 come off, and then with 5 seconds left, we're going to go try to score, or whatever it might have been, just, at the end of a shot clock, shooting a shot, Alabama said, no, we're going to go just all out, and it turned from a 7-point game to a 20-point game. And I would have rather Eric Musselman stepped on the throat or tried to step on the throat and lose in a shootout and just run out of gas completely than blow a lead and lose in overtime. You still have to play that extra 5 minutes of overtime, so you might as well try to win it in regulation. And I was annoyed with that.
Two problems I had with the Auburn game. One is that I don't have a problem with the stall ball, but I don't want it before the final 4 minutes. That 4-minute timeout is too much.
2.5, 3 minutes.
I agree with you. I'm with you on that.
At most. Because, it just, when you're up 9 with 3 minutes left, then they're going to have to foul you. At some point, they're going to have to foul you. But what Arkansas did was blew the dang lead before they even had to foul.
You know what? The whole point of what they just did is, number one, they were tired. They were gassed. I was there. I saw it. But I also think that they look at the analytics side of things and say, okay, they were up 11 at that one point and said, okay, Auburn has so many possessions left.
Yeah.
All we have to do is score. The problem was they didn't score. And so that was I didn't like the stall ball. I could have lived with it if it was after the 4-minute timeout.
What they basically were doing was praying that they made it through at the end of a shot clock. And that's just terrible.
Especially with no legs.
Even somebody like Desi Seals getting the ball and driving into the paint, a lot of times he'll just run straight into somebody. And it's a 50-50 call most of the time he gets the call. And he likes to make layups, with contact. Yeah. Go get a free throw. Do something to put points on the board. It's similar to what's happened a couple of times this year.
Wes Domrisi makes me laugh, man. I saw him after that ball game. He said, I forgot Musk got scared and tried to run the clock out with 6 minutes to play. Thanks for that reminder.
Well, that was the only thing. And like I said, that was the only thing that I was upset about. And it wasn't necessarily upset. It was just I had a question. I would like to not see that happen again. And I remember, people were saying, oh, you got the benefit of hindsight. I was screaming at my TV with 5 minutes left, don't do this. Don't do this. 4 minutes left. When they just go to half court and they're just dribbling it around and you're not attacking at all. And because I remember, I think it was Desi Seals or Jalen Harris that launched a 3 basically at the shot clock buzzer, and I'm like, here we go. We're just going to basically shoot at the end of a shot clock and not make anybody foul. I know they're tired, man, but they had to play 5 extra minutes in overtime on those tired legs. So let me
give you my number 2 problem. My number 2 problem was the final shot again, and I don't like Harris taking my final 3.
No,
at all.
There was really no other choice.
Okay, so here,
double team, launch it up over him.
Here's my thing: is that they gave the ball to Jones, basically saying you're going to draw a crowd, get it to somebody else, or go to the rim. My thing would have been to go ahead and give it to Harris. Now Harris did get the ball at the end of the Missouri game and dish it off, although there was 3 seconds left versus 6 seconds left. Quit letting Harris shoot the ball at the end of the game. I would have rather had Desi on that side of the floor and let Desi shoot that shot. I feel better about that shot going in than with Harris going with it. And then at the end of the game, again against Missouri, get the ball to your quickest guy. I get that, but 3 seconds left.
I joke it didn't even hit the dang rim.
No,
straight off the backboard.
You got to pull up. You got to shoot it. It's not working. That part of the game, we can say whatever we want to say. And I'm a Musk guy. Me
too.
Don't get me wrong when I say this, but that part has just not worked at all.
Well, when you're talking about how well he does preparing and adjusting in game, those and keeping games that shouldn't even be games.
Oh yeah.
Getting back against Kentucky and taking the lead, that was a minor miracle. Like the fact that he did that is crazy. So that must and this team don't mesh with end of game decisions and play calls at the end of a game. It's not like it's a choke job. It's just not up to the same standard. So.
No, it's not. But, yeah, there's something up there, especially when you're getting to a point where you know that it's going to be close all the time. Yeah. It's going to be close every game. I'll guarantee you tonight against Tennessee, it's going to be close for sure. It's going to be close. So be watching for that. And, again, Arkansas does travel to Knoxville tonight against Tennessee. And, there's some numbers there looking at them. Tennessee's very similar to what Missouri was. Missouri was One of the lower teams in the conference as far as scoring. Tennessee's the same way, only averaging 66.5 points per game and giving up 62 points per game, which rises them up closer to, I think, like 30th, 20th as far as in the NCAA as far as the defense goes. They're also low in the rebounding. I think they're 10th in the SEC in rebounding.
Then Arkansas's got a shot.
Well, here's the thing. Why are they 10th in the SEC in rebounding? Because everybody else has an opportunity to keep them from rebounding. Arkansas doesn't really have that opportunity.
That's true.
So
that's true. Well, I just see it as though, they're not playing Auburn, leading the league in rebounding. You're not playing LSU, who's just going to volleyball it to themselves. You're playing a team that's lower rated in rebounding. What happened?
I can't. You can look at the comments. You can tell me what, because I just about responded. I'm not going to.
Oh, Lord. What is it? Is it about? It doesn't matter. We'll get to it here in a little bit. Regardless, I just I feel like Arkansas is not going to make the NCAA tournament. I'm just to answer your point.
Okay, so here's my thing: is this week is huge for that. If you win 2 this week, you're still in it, for sure. You're way in it. In Arkansas, I think the thing that you need to look at when you're framing this argument is this, and it's massive, and I mean massive. And the talks about being the perception or things saying the perception is reality. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. Arkansas has to play their way out of the tournament versus playing their way into the tournament, and that makes a massive difference when you're talking about perception being reality.
Yeah, they're doing a heck of a job playing their way out of it, too,
though. You know what, though? But they get more grace, they get more leniency, and all you got to do is go back to Mike Anderson's teams to see this. Go back to 2013. This was actually right in front of our faces. Iowa was a terrible team down the stretch, lost like 9 of 10 or something like that. They ended up in the tournament as one of the teams that went to Dayton. They lose that first game. Arkansas played pretty well down the stretch, had a stinker or two here, and it ended up keeping them out of the tournament. Arkansas also beat Kentucky twice that year. Kentucky ended up going to the final game. Arkansas should have made the tournament over Iowa. They weren't able to make it, and really and truly probably might have ended up getting Mike Anderson fired because you end up getting one more tournament appearance, and you can say, well, he made the tournament so many times out of so many years or whatever. But all that being said, that was on display in 2013 in that year. And, Arkansas's right now in that position where if they can just win some of the games that they're supposed to win, I think the magic number might end up being 21, which I think you had 21 and 10.
Yeah.
If they get there, they're going to make it. But 16-7 right now overall, that means they got to go 5-3 over the next 8. And right now, the way it's configured, it doesn't look likely.
Man, I'm gonna change my tune just a little bit because I said that they're not going to make the tournament. And as I look at this schedule, I have them losing tonight against LSU or against Tennessee. I have them losing against Mississippi State at home. I have them losing against Florida. I think they can beat Florida. Florida's not good. I think they can beat Florida. I'm not saying they will, but they can. They should beat Missouri at home. They should beat Tennessee at home. They can beat Georgia on the road. And then I've got them losing against LSU and winning at A&M. So I don't see any of these games that I predicted 3-4 weeks ago being much different than the way that I have projected them, except for a potential win at Florida when I had a loss before, because Florida has just really fallen off and looked just terrible the last few times I've watched them. And you win a game tonight or you win against Mississippi State, and you're ahead of my projections and right back in the thick of things. I don't know when or if you get Isaiah Joe back.
Well, you've got to steal some ball games now because you've lost a couple games already that you shouldn't have lost. I said 2 weeks ago, I think I said that we would lose 1 that we shouldn't. We lost 2 that we shouldn't. We have won 1 that we shouldn't. We won
Bama.
2. Yeah.
Lost to Missouri and South Carolina
So
games.
Anyway, so now you're looking at you got to beat Mississippi State at home.
That's a tough one, man.
Figure out a way to keep Reggie Perry from scoring 60 on you.
Somebody break his kneecaps, man. I would actually not hate to see, just to give some of these guards some legs at the end of the game, some lineups where you put Henderson in some when you get the chance. Chaney and Bailey basically have to be in because those two have been stalwarts. So you get him or Scylla in maybe with the other two just to give some guards a little bit of a breather. Mason Jones a little bit more legs toward the end of a game. Desi Sills and Jimmy Witt. Maybe if you've got Sills and Witt and Jones out, you let those two guards kind of drive the thing and let the three bigs try to clean up and give Mason Jones a few minutes and then kind of swap out here or there with your rotation. Obviously, the rotation's got to change in some way. Whether it's adding more minutes for Scylla or Henderson, which I think is probably a good idea because the only way to get people off the floor is to give somebody else minutes, or to just change up the substitution patterns just a little bit to where people like Mason Jones and Desi Sills and Jimmy Witt have some legs at the end of a game. But a lot of that's dictated by foul trouble, and we really don't need to get into all those dang fouls. My God, how many fouls did they? They're still blowing whistles right now.
83 foul shots in that game against Missouri, and then what was it, 70-something against South Carolina, 57 foul calls. I mean, those games have been ugly. Those two teams both play a style that they foul a lot. They're physical. I felt like there was some more that could have been called. I could get on the SEC refs every time we do this. I just won't. But that being said, Arkansas's got to figure it out tonight. They really need to pick this victory up tonight and then come and defend the home court. You know, Arkansas has lost their last 3 SEC home games.
Yep. Well,
that's
of course,
tough.
One of them was a bad loss. South Carolina, of course, South Carolina's got some good wins too, but Kentucky and Auburn.
Right.
So,
but you can't do that at the same time. I mean,
no, you're right. That's why I've said it.
Just go back and look at seasons that Arkansas has lost 3 in a row, and they never turn out that great. Mm-hmm. And when I say 3 in a row, I mean 3 in a row at Bud Walton. They haven't turned out that great. So, again, of course, we're also talking about a team that is without Isaiah Joe, and we don't know when he's going to come back. I mean, I know that they were showing him the other night shooting from a chair, and I thought, well, what good does that do? I mean, he hurt his knee, so he's not going to be able to get out there in a wheelchair and play. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but Arkansas needs him back ASAP to add another guard into the rotation. And I wonder, and I know this is crazy when I say this, but does Arkansas try to steal a minute with like the walk-on guy? I mean, still 2 minutes with the walk-on. Come in, play a little bit, pass the ball a little bit.
If anybody can, and just stay out of the way.
Exactly.
You're right, and guard the heck out of somebody.
Exactly.
Foul if you have to, but
you got 5 fouls. You got 5 minutes to get 5 fouls.
And Lord knows they're willing to give those fouls. They're willing to call that foul. I promise you. So,
absolutely.
No, I'm with you, man. Do whatever you've got to do to steal some time. And Musk talked about it before about how, we'll play these guys high minutes because we'll give them breaks during timeouts and extended break. Maybe call a timeout right before a big break so that they get a little bit longer, or pull a guy right before a TV timeout kind of thing, or under 16 or whatever, so that he can get a little bit more real time sitting than he would get, clock time sitting. And it worked to a certain extent, and now he's got to figure out another wrinkle, and I think he can easily do it. Muss has been incredible at that.
Well, as for tonight, Arkansas is looking at Jordan Bowden, 13.1 points per game. John Fulkerson, 12.2 points per game. Those will be the two guys that they have to contend with. And then you also, I feel like Tennessee's a pretty well-coached team, but undermanned this year as well. They're also one of those teams that is way up in the recruiting rankings. In fact, I think one spot above Arkansas as far as their recruiting class goes. So, they're going to come back. They lost a lot from last year's team, who was fantastic, very good basketball team last year. They'll be back. But as for tonight, Arkansas needs to pick up a win to kind of get this thing going in the right direction once again, but it will be tough. There has been a mention. I'm going to say mention. I don't know if it's been by anybody important that Mason Jones might sit down tonight. Like, do you want to go and mail it in and lose on purpose? Go ahead and set Mason Jones down, and you probably ain't going to win tonight.
And, just in the interest of fairness, that is not something that we have confirmed by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a rumor that's out there on the message boards that he might sit. I figure we would have heard that by now, although you could understand if they didn't want to release that kind of information because it's a huge advantage to the opponent if that's the case. So we'll see if that's how it turns out. I'd hope not, because like you said, that's a guaranteed loss. If Mason Jones doesn't play with no Isaiah Joe, you've got 6 guys that can play plus walk-ons. That ain't a recipe for success at all.
Thanks to Bill Harshaw, Alan George, Jamie Travis, Channing Hicks, Wes Domaris, let's see, Rob Bailey, Jason Lowe. We all see you up on here or have been on here at one point. Thanks for watching. And again, let us know what you think. If you got any questions, we'd love to
give us your
get
comments.
with you.
Tell us why we're stupid. I got into it with a dude on Twitter the other day about this. I mean, he basically called me stupid because I said that this worth asking, about Muss's end game decisions. And I told him, I was like, we'll have you call in. And the more I saw through the week on Twitter, the more I saw that he just trolls a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, he just gets people pissed off at him. And then he acts like he's smarter than you are. And so I didn't want to give him that opportunity, and I unfollowed him on Twitter. So we're done with that, and that was fun.
The Twitters.
Regardless, we are through talking negatively about basketball. We have properly placed our projections and our perception of the team, and hopefully you guys will be able to be like me and just be calm, cool, and collected during Razorback games, because that's how I always am.
You usually are, right? Because when they start losing, you
I
shut
just turn
it
it
off.
Yeah, because I can't handle it. It makes me literally sick to my stomach and gives me a bad day.
Well, and let's say this too, and I think we've said this before on the show, but we're not going to act like we're not fans, because we are fans. I think that people get into this business that we're doing right now because they are fans. They want to be closer to the team. They want to get paid to talk about it, that sort of thing. That's why we're in this thing, is we are fans. But here we are. We're talking about Muss's in the game decisions, that sort of thing. I think
it's
that we
fair
can
to criticize.
I think that we can separate fandom from the actual reality of life, and so that's what we're trying to do here.
Speak for yourself. That's why I turned the TV off.
Used to people didn't go buy the Sunday paper. Now it's turn the TV off or don't get on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Boy, those places can be cesspools for
absolutely
for a day or two for sure. But
old Dingleberry, got to fire Muss.
Right, whatever.
Hey, we've got a poll question result here. 93% of Arkansas Razorback fans who are watching this right now say the Hogs will make the NCAA tournament. So you have convinced them with your play your way out versus play your way in.
Well,
right now they've
true.
just slid down from 7, 8, 9. Now it looks like a 10 in the projections. So
I think Jerry Palm still has them as a 9. I mean, you're 4-6 in the league. You got to find a way to get to 9-9. I think that even at 9-9, if somebody's above them that may not make the tournament, it's because of the non-conference and what they did. I think that they can sneak in. I mean, that's happened before.
I don't think their non-conference is looking very good anymore. Georgia Tech's terrible. Indiana's not looking good. And TCU just got beat by 40.
Every loss that happens definitely hurts. Yeah, 46.
They got smoked.
Got beat by
just
46.
Absolutely got smoked.
But they are named teams. They are from another conference. That is something, another Power 5 conference.
Got to get to baseball, man. We
do. And Arkansas does have Eastern Illinois this weekend, kicking off baseball season. We had Ryan Folks on last week. If you want to listen to Ryan Folks, it's still up on the website. All you got to do is go into our videos and just search Tusk Talk, and you can see that Ryan Folks is on with us. Very first guy on the show last week. And, man, he brought a wealth of information. And, just kind of piggybacking, I guess, kind of getting ready on this weekend series. Ryan does a great job of updating his Twitter. We get a lot of our news from him. Yeah. And that guy is putting it out there. One of the things that you're noticing, and I've noticed as well, is Heston Kjerstad. Heston Kjerstad was named the #1 outfielder in the nation by D1 Baseball.
Yeah, not only that, in Arkansas, you can see the rankings are from 4th to 11th in different rankings that are put out there by different publications. But there's some really good buzz for guys like Casey Martin and Heston Kjerstad right now, and especially Kjerstad, man. It seems like every time I watch Ryan Folks' Twitter during a scrimmage or intra-squad of some kind, he's hitting a bomb or he's hitting a double off the wall oppo. He's working on things and making a big difference.
That's what we were going to point out, is the opposite field stuff that he's doing right now has just been amazing. Hitting the ball, they say, into the hog pen and into the bullpen and that sort of thing. And man, if you could get Kjerstad hitting that ball down that left field line, home runs, I mean, how can you stop the guy? Because they're going to put the shift on him.
Yep.
But I'm expecting him to hit one into the lake behind Baum at some point, or the pond behind Baum.
He almost did last year in the Super Regional.
He's pretty fantastic. I said earlier this year he's got a chance to be the best baseball player to ever play at Arkansas, just player-wise, not necessarily about, Major League Baseball or whatever, but he's got a chance. And you said something about, that he might be one of those guys that hits 350, hits 20 home runs. And the guy that I come up with last year,
stealing my notes,
J.J. Blade from Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Who's the kid? Somebody compared him to somebody from LSU. I think it was Folks, but I didn't remember who it was that he compared him to somebody that was really, really good. Bregman.
Yeah.
So, talking about some really high levels.
Well,
of
you're looking
competition.
at a guy that's going to be a first round draft pick,
Yeah.
most likely. And we talked about him being the number one outfielder, and he didn't get to be the number one outfielder by the fact that he can go out there and field it very well. Now, not to say that he's a terrible fielder, but he looks a little shaky in the outfield. It's that bat. It's that bat that brings it out there and makes him a highly rated a pro prospect.
Yeah. Well, with me, I've been looking at and kind of trying to get my head around. Obviously, you think Arkansas can go back to Omaha. Maddie just posted a question here. Do you expect Arkansas baseball to make it back to Omaha? Yes.
I voted yes.
I did too. And I think that at this point, with as great as Arkansas has been over the last few years, it would almost be a disappointment if they didn't make it back to Omaha. I'm talking national championship level good. What I'm looking for this year is something that I don't know that I've seen it. I don't follow baseball super closely normally, and if the Razorbacks aren't good, I really don't. I don't like baseball, but I'm expecting for the Razorbacks to look like one of those teams you see in Omaha from the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or the ACC, where everybody in the lineup bats 300. You got 4 or 5 guys batting 330 with 15 home runs. And I think you're going to have at least 2 Razorbacks. I think Heston Kjerstad and Casey Martin are going to hit right at 20 home runs this year at least. I think Heston Kjerstad, it's a foregone conclusion to me that he's going to hit 20 home runs unless there's an injury. You got to
have somebody behind him to protect him, because if not, he's not going to see pitches.
The way that the lineup shook out from what folks put from the last intra squad, they had Webb batting first, Franklin batting second, and then Kjerstad batting third. Well, then you put a 370 for a lot of the year hitter, Matt Goodhart, behind him. Yep. You can't get around Kjerstad.
Exactly.
And then if you try to get around Kjerstad or Martin or Goodhart, you got Martin behind them. And if Martin's hitting well, God, what do you do? I mean, if he's hitting really well, he ends up in, and Franklin's not, he ends up in the 2 slot. Yep. Franklin moves down. You've got no easy place in this lineup for a pitcher to take a breath. That's crazy.
I think it's easy to say that if Martin and Kjerstad both have good years this year, may not be the best player to ever play here, because there's been some really good players to play here, guys that have long major league careers, Kevin McReynolds, Jeff King, different guys like that. Andrew Benintendi's in there right now, just signed a $10 million contract. And I think that some of that gets swayed by how good they are in the major leagues. But I think it's pretty easy to say that it would be the best duo to ever play at Arkansas, with those two there coming in the same year.
And potentially being first-round draft
picks.
Exactly.
I think it's very possible that those two could be the best duo ever. And they'll be very possibly the only guys that ever made Omaha 3 years in a row, or at least that class will be the only class to ever make Omaha 3 years in a row. And it's very possible, and we're hoping for it, and we're planning for it, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. So there are a couple questions we asked a couple weeks ago, and we asked folks the same thing about some of these questions that we had. Who's going to be the third starter? That one's been answered.
Yeah, and that's Blake Adams from Springdale Harbor. 95-mile-an-hour fastball as a freshman. Now, look, you've got Connor Nolan, you got Patrick Wicklander. I think you feel like you can depend on those guys. And those guys actually have another year, although Connor Nolan is a draft-eligible sophomore. It's something to watch. But with those two having a chance to grow, they could be really, really good next year. I expect them to be good this year. I'm not sure that I expect them to be Blaine Knight, Isaiah Campbell good, but I expect them to be very good. I mean, when you're talking about Nolan and the shoes that he has to fill for those 2 years in a row there, where you had a guy that went 14-0, 15-0, and then the guy went 15-1. I mean, it's unreal. And then you got Blake Adams, who I think is probably your future Friday night guy at some point, with a guy that has that lively fastball. And I was listening to Dave Van Horn talk. He said, listen, this guy could hit for us if we wanted him to. But the thing is, when he concentrated on pitching is when his velocity went up. And you're talking about a guy that's throwing 95 as a freshman.
What's crazy to me, and it's what really kind of gets me the most excited about this, aside from the power in the batting lineup and so many of these guys that have stepped up, like Christian Franklin, who's played so much better since the end of last season when he really picked it up and then through the summer, is the fact that Dave Van Horn said it. I think it was Van Horn that said it. You got a Friday night starter, and last year it's Campbell, and the year before it's Blaine Knight, and this year it's looking like it's going to be Connor Nolan. But you've also got the other two. You've got Saturday and Sunday you've got to play too, and if you win those two but you lose Friday, you've still won the series.
Exactly.
So you've got a guy like Wicklander who is every bit of number one that Connor Noland is, or at least is in that conversation pitching on Saturday. You can win that game against anybody. And then if this dude's a 95-mile-an-hour flamethrower and he can find the strike zone on Sunday,
Right.
there aren't going to be any pitchers, any teams except for outside of maybe 2 or 3 in the conference that can match that on Sunday.
Right. Well, most of the time you kind of just throw a guy in there as your third starter. It's a guy that probably was a long reliever the year before, and you hope that he could get you 4 to 5, and then you can kind of piece it together to try to get yourself a series win on Sunday. And you got a guy that's going to be a legitimate Friday night starter at some point. Now, obviously, he's going to get hit. He's going to have some things to learn. But you're talking about a guy like Wicklander was last year. Wicklander got hit around a little bit, but at the end of the day, he ended up being a very good pitcher for Arkansas. And we want to thank Anna Lester of Farm Credit and of Western Arkansas for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Anna. Anyway, obviously we can sit here and talk all day long about how good Arkansas baseball has been and how good we expect it to be. Let's look at the Eastern Illinois, the team that they're going to play this week, which is the second year in a row that they actually have led off with Eastern Illinois. Arkansas swept a 3-game series from Eastern Illinois last year. Arkansas, they on paper this looks like a major mismatch. I mean, Eastern Illinois is picked 8th in the Ohio Valley Conference out of 11. They only have one preseason all-conference player, and that is Christian Pena. He's a 5'10", 190-pound third baseman. He batted .381 last year, 4 home runs and 30 RBIs, but he's
like that team they played in the regional last year, the first baseman who just hit bombs. It's like, don't pitch to him. They did anyway. Right. He hit a bomb anyway, but get him out, and then you win the game. So Friday at 3, Saturday at 2, Sunday at 1. Hopefully people will be able to make it out to Baum and watch the Razorbacks potentially get another sweep of a team that they should beat and really start the year off on a strong note. But a couple of those questions, Brad, that we wanted to see answered. One, who was going to be the third starter? We saw that answered. What's the batting order? That's what really is kind of interesting to me, and I think it'll be in flux. Dave Van Horn, I was reminded yesterday on the radio that he said there are guys who are battling for minutes and at-bats that we've never seen this kind of competition as far as having this many players and players who can play and need to play. But I wonder where they're going to slot in. It seems like Webb has locked down the one hole, the leadoff batter, and then the second one's kind of up for grabs between Franklin and or who was it that was up there before? I guess they had Kerstad there, and then they had Goodhart at 3. And then Martin at 4, and they just slid everybody down when they put Franklin up there. So there's some flux there in the middle, and then going down to the bottom of the lineup, you've got a guy who was a top 20 player in Robert Moore, who is picked at 9th, in the batting order. They call him a second leadoff. So, how that batting order shakes out to me is going to be very interesting, and you'll see starting on Friday.
Well, the thing is you usually don't see a team start with a batting order and it end with a batting order. It ends up, it's in flux. It changes throughout the season. I think that you've got a very solid 9 there, but you also got competition for at-bats, like you said. You start struggling throughout the year, you're going to lose some at-bats for sure. And, if you struggle long enough, you're going to lose a spot because there's just that many guys that are able to step in and play for this Razorback baseball team. And like you said, it's unlike anything that we've seen before, and it's not going to be like it just this year, but you're looking at next year as well, and possibly even the following year as unbelievable possible years. You're talking about a program right now that is just rolling.
Yeah, for sure. And Ryan Folks last week mentioned guys like Zach Gregory, who not in the projected batting order, but a .485 on-base percentage last year. Curtis Washington Jr., we've seen him over the last couple of years kind of in pinch hit, pinch run, come in the field at the end of a game type of mop-up duty. Catcher Tamez, I don't know how you pronounce it. And then we mentioned 3 guys that could potentially be there as closers, not even mentioning Cops and Ramage, who were right in the thick of things for that third starter role, and now they're going to be back in the bullpen, it looks like. Cops, Ramage, Caleb Bolden, and then Blake Adams ends up with the third spot. So That's 3 extra pitchers right there that can come out of the bullpen that are not one of those 3 starters that we've mentioned, plus 3 guys vying for the closer role. That means you've got at least 6 guys that you can bring out of the bullpen at any point in time. Tress, Ryan said he was a hard thrower with great command. Burton throws a lot of strikes, throws hard, and then we thought it was going to go with Tress, and he kept talking. Then, oh man, maybe it's Burton, and then he goes, but I think the guy is Zebulon Vermillion, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
So there's 3 of them that could potentially be the closer. That means you could have a 7th, 8th, and 9th. I mean, you could have a setup on a setup with all these other guys in middle relief. We say all that to say there are dudes on top of just all kinds of players that Arkansas can throw out there. So it's depth like we've never seen.
It is. It's depth like we've never seen, and it's shaping up to be. Man, I just feel it right now. I just feel something good about this team, and maybe I'm crazy, but I just feel like that they are going to be in the mix for it all. And maybe I'm shaded because of the 18 team that was. And we talked about how that we think that they could hit more home runs this year than they did. You're talking about possibly a better lineup than that team was. I mean, there's a lot of big time aspects to this team. One question that I do have is, have they figured out a way to adjust to the lollipop type of left-hander? You know what I'm talking about? The guy that comes in and throws about 82, and everything looks like a changeup, because that actually has been the thing that's given Arkansas the trouble.
Yeah, you throw at 95, they're going to drill you.
They will hit the fastball, and they can hit the hard-throwing guys, but it is those guys that are the third starter that always get the Razorbacks when they don't need to be gotten, you know. And so hopefully they'll be able to figure out how to sit back, adjust, that sort of thing. I mean, that's just one of the very small questions that are there with this team.
As we look at the poll question Maddie put up here, with 101% reporting, we've got 88% saying yes, Arkansas will go back to Omaha, and 13% saying no, they will not. I don't know why Facebook is allowing them to have more than 100%, but
101%
Facebook
of
can
the
do it.
precincts.
That's the FBI guy that's watching. He's just like voting when he's not supposed to be actually there. Regardless, we've got Arkansas baseball Friday, Saturday, and Sunday against Eastern Illinois. Friday at 3, Saturday at 2, Sunday at 1. If you can make it out to Baum Stadium, I'm sure that they will love to have you, and it will be a fun weekend for Razorback baseball. So I'm interested to see who are the first guys out of the bullpen, who are the first guys off the bench, who are the guys that you haven't seen before that hit well and play well and acquit themselves well, because just to be honest with you, if Heston Kjerstad and Casey Martin and Opitz all have terrible days, they're still going to play. It doesn't matter. But some of these guys, they have a bad night and somebody's coming for them. So it's that's going to be interesting.
Well, you're going to see a lot of guys play this week. There's no doubt. I think that I think that you'll see some different starting lineups even. But this first day starting lineup is the one that they think is the best one at this point. So we'll see and pay attention to that. They're going to give their best lineup. They're going to put their best pitcher. They're going to throw their best relievers in game one, because they want to see how this thing works this season. But I'll guarantee you on Saturday you'll see some other guys step in there and play, because they have the ability to do that. And look, there's nothing wrong with getting a guy in there every once in a while and kind of giving him rest, because baseball season is a grind, man. You're playing 60-plus games in about, 4-month span, something like that. I mean, we're talking about, 4.5 months, because Omaha comes in at the end of June. So, I mean, they've got to get some guys in there that could give somebody a break. I mean, it'd be nice for Casey Opitz not to have to catch 60 ball games this year.
Yeah, and I don't think he will. I think they'll have him out in some midweek, and maybe if they've sewn up a series by Sunday, they can get somebody else in there, and they've got 2 or 3 guys that can catch. So that's another just crazy depth problem that Arkansas has this year. So we need to move on to football real quickly before we get out of here. Sam Pittman was making the radio rounds this afternoon. I heard a little bit from him on that, basically about the whirlwind that's been since he took over as head coach, the signing period and what he was able to do, getting the class that he did. And they asked him, what he felt about his class, and kind of to clarify his comments about how, Arkansas should do better and we expected to do better. And it was something like the fact that they expected to get a tight end, another tight end, and I think probably Alan Horace going to I think they expected Frazier to go to Auburn, but I think Horace was one that they were really shocked that he went to UTSA. So the fact that they've got the one tight end that they got, they wanted another one. And then he said they really went heavy on defense. And I'm interested to see whether or not that defensive end from Clemson, Xavier Kelly, ends up coming to Arkansas. So it didn't work out real well last time for the Kelly from Clemson coming to Arkansas. But regardless, we're expecting that.
His cousin this time, right?
Yeah, oh gosh. Well, if he ends up at Missouri, we'll find out. So anyway.
Yeah. So one thing that stuck out to me as far as the recruiting class goes is Malik Hornsby, obviously.
Huge.
A guy that I said this on Twitter, and I got a little backlash about this, but he is the most dynamic quarterback that Arkansas has signed since Matt Jones. Now, Jefferson's right there from last year, but if you look at the guys that Arkansas signed in the past 20 years, there's nobody that even comes close to that on the film of Matt Jones, and this guy Hornsby does. In fact, one of the analysts, I wish I could tell you who said it, said that he has, Steve Wiltfong said it, he has some Lamar Jackson in him. I mean, come on, somebody. I mean, that's what he said.
700-yard or 100-meter dash.
Said he's probably the most dynamic quarterback in the class, and you're talking about a guy that Arkansas got in on late and was able to come in and bring him in. And, I have no idea what the kid's going to do. He may come to Arkansas and not be that great, but just the fact that you're able to be mentioned with that kind of recruit is a big feather in their cap moving forward.
The fact of that I know he wanted to go to Baylor from what a lot of people talked about before, and Matt Rule ends up going to the NFL, and it kind of made an open door. But the fact that, like you said, you can get a top 10 dual threat quarterback, which I don't remember where he was in the overall rankings at quarterback, but he's a top 10 dual threat guy with basically 3-4 weeks of recruitment. That just tells me that there is so much potential with this recruiting staff. I hope that they can keep the staff together for quite a while and that they can get the best out of them over the course of some years. I don't know how long you're going to be able to keep a guy like Briles or a guy like Odom before they either make the next stop. I guess my Razorback colored glasses would say, hey, I think Briles is going to stick around a little while because his last 4 years he's been at 4 different jobs. And maybe Odom is picky about what kind of head job he gets next if Arkansas is able to improve. But, man, it just gives me a lot of hope for the future as far as recruiting goes with that kind of staff and that kind of haul within just a couple of weeks.
Maddie's throwing it out there. Are you surprised that Arkansas football finished in the top 30 in recruiting? And I will say yes, I am. And that basically because when we came in here and did one of our very first Tusk talks, Arkansas was rated 120th. And they were behind teams like Harvard. And so now they moved into the top 30. And when you consider that really 29th is what a lot of people have rated them as, consider the fact that Arkansas signed the 23rd rated class last year with Chad Morris doing all of the things that he does. And say whatever you want to say about Morris, he can recruit, and he did recruit. I think it's a big-time deal for Arkansas to be able to put talent against talent or with talent, however you want to say it, and really not lose a class that they very well could have lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. All right, well, we need to get out of here. Before we do predictions for tonight's game against Tennessee, I'm not holding out a lot of hope that they're going to win it. I'm going to be super excited if they do win it. I do think, as always, though, it's going to be a close game. I think Muss is going to scheme it up to the point that, if a guy hits shot, if Mason Jones goes for 30, they can win. If Jimmy Witt shows up with him, I think you're going to get double digits from Chaney. I think you're going to get right around double digits from Sills. And if you get a two-guy performance from somebody like Witt and Jones, who Jones has got to score 20, there's just about no getting around it, then you've got a chance. I'm not going to go ahead and predict that they're going to win. I'm going to say it's going to be a close loss, but I'll be pleasantly surprised if they win.
Yeah, I can't sit here and predict that they're going to win and be objective about it, but, I mean, I'm kind of like you. Let's hope that they do prove us wrong in that aspect. I mean, I don't think Arkansas gets blown out. I mean, their worst loss was 7 points this season, whatever it is. I mean, they haven't got blown out. Don't see them getting blown out tonight. I hope they don't get blown out because I do think that if they get blown out, you could probably see some cracks and
some letting go of the rope.
A little bit of letting go of the rope. I mean, you saw Mason Jones a little bit the other day and getting at Muss. I mean, sometimes that's just frustration. that gets a hold of people. I mean, Muss and Jones seem to be on good terms for the most part this year. But you're right. That Jones has got to be on. You saw what happened when he was off, and I expect that it should be a close game, but I expect that Tennessee probably wins tonight. But again, prove me wrong.
I hope they do. All right, well, I guess that's all the time we have, Brad. You want to see us out of here?
Yeah, so thanks for watching once again. Thanks to everybody that joined us. We'll be back next week right here at 2 p.m. for more Tusk Talk.